Okay, so we're going to make sure we're scaled down again. And we're going to look at making a cylinder building somewhat similar to this in a minute. But I want to make sure that I'm working in inches now, and there is one other little tip that can be useful, and that's going into Customize, Unit Setup, and changing our preferences to inches here. And the point of that is, now we can type in 800 inches if I want to make a new object. So that's going to help me somewhat when I scale my building made out of a capsule. So in our command panel, in Create, let's drop down to Extended Primitives and find the capsule. And let's just double check our theory here. If I wanted to make a 800 foot high building, I would then type in height here, 800 tab, and then it's now interpreting that to feet. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so if I want to make it a little bit higher like this building, I'm just going to drag that up. And I'm 123. It's reinterpreting it now into feet and inches for us to understand it. But once again, if I'm typing, 100 tab, that's taking 100 inches and translating that into the appropriate number of feet and inches. Okay, I hope that makes sense to us. So at least that will give us a start if we wanted to make an object. We just type it in inches, and then it's going to reinterpret the number here. Okay, enough with that. All right, so we're looking at our attributes of our cylinder, and I'm making sides, a judgment on sides based on how smooth I want my object. So if I keep it too low, like it might be set to default, like to 12 or some lower number, that might look a little bit too blocky when I render this. And if I go really high, that's totally unnecessary and be very difficult to work with. So find some number that is the minimal number. There's sort of a zen to modeling, and is do the least, because the more polygons you make, not only is it going to be more work for Max to manage in your viewport and also to render, but it's more work for you. You don't want to work harder than you have to. So I'm making something, and I'm just fiddling around with this radius. What I have to do is cut off this bottom part, and I'm going to help myself a little bit by hitting F for front or L for left, just to see the side of my building lined up against the grid. And if your grid is off like mine, we're just going to hit G. Now I accidentally hit the T because it's next to the G, so I'm going to hit L again, and then G is going to kill that grid or turn it back on. I want it on because I want to be able to see what's happening here. I'm going to right-click, convert this to editable poly, drop down to sub-object polygon, and I'm going to select my polygons there. I make sure ignore back-facing is off and hit the delete key. And exit sub-object. I'm going to move my guy down here with the move tool until I land on that grid line. Okay. Now, what I want to do is just to be kind of organized, is I'm going to adjust my pivot point, because I really don't like to see my gizmos off the object. So over to Hierarchy tab, Effect Pivot Only, and then just move that up. And I'm not being perfect and just doing it by eye. Then I have to make sure to exit Pivot Point Only, hit P for Perspective, and now I'm ready to work with this as a model. Alt Q to get into isolation mode. And let's save our work. It's always important. So I can hit the plus here to do a incremental file save. Now my file is named sci-fi city 004.max. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We're just going to look at some tricks of playing with this. Let's look at maybe going to the edge sub-object and just look at maybe extruding out some little shoulders here. And like I said, we're going to kind of keep this short and sweet. Let's hit ring and just see how that's going for us. Control key down, hit polygon. There's a selection. What I don't want to do is run into a problem in the poles. Similar issue with working with spheres. So I'm going to back up a little bit here and then right click and do an extrude out and just see what that looks like. But what it's going to be all about pretty much is whether I'm extruding by group or by local normal or by polygon. Okay, and in this case I think local normal looks a little bit neater. It looks like a little wing sort of thing here, and hit check on that. So I like that look. So what I do is just go around maybe and put this on each side and you know, just kind of have some fun with that. So add sub-object, let's ring there, let's hold down control and do it there, and do it there. Control down again to transfer those to polygons. Alt key to remove some of these from the selection. Right click, extrude, and just hit check. So that's sort of fun. I like that. Okay. So, gosh, what else can we do with this guy? Hit exit and maybe look at some of our inspiration. Now, by the way, I want everybody to keep in mind with our tutorial, what the goal is not for me to show you how to do every building, because that'll be impossible. There just isn't enough time. But for you to be inspired. Now, some of you might be inspired by your own drawings, or you might be inspired by some specific goal you've got, but I think it's tremendously useful to look at what other artists have done, especially if they're better than you and they've had more experience, and just Google like crazy images for futuristic cities or different movies, etc., or sci-fi city, future world, and look at those images. Really use this rendering view image file. In older versions of Macs, I think it might have been under views, but since 2010, rendering view image file, find some pictures. I can open up this because this is mine. There's no copyright issue with this. And get those pictures in front of you and get inspired. See what other people did. How did they make something? It's so intriguing. You'll find out how as you start building things yourself. That's what it's all about. So, you know, this thing that I made, it just becomes now an open door to work with just the way we've been doing with other things. So I could maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll take a bunch of things around here. Maybe every other one has something else going on with it. See, look at this. My count is off over here. I don't care. You know what I mean? This is all fun. There we go. Now I'm even again. Now I feel better. Okay. So, you know, what would these be like if they maybe extruded out on local normal and they went, you know, way the heck up, and maybe they came down, you know, more of a negative, and I hit OK, and then I scaled them in. All right. Now here's an interesting thing. If I scale this, I'm going to have to watch out for my pivot point center, because I can't be scaling it from there, right? So I'm going to drop down here and go to this guy here called Use Selection Center, and then I'm going to scale in. Now here's another thing to be very aware of. I'm sure most of you realize this. You have to watch out in your scale gizmo where it's very critical whether you're over this or over that or over that or over that. And I want to scale it on X and Y. So that is the part that has to be yellow, so I can bring these guys in like this. You know? I'm just having fun with this. So you're just going to make stuff. So I don't think I'm going to get really detailed with this guy. I'll maybe show you a couple of these other ones. You can see it's not that much more than what we just did. This stuff is obvious by now. We know how to just bevel and extrude things out. And here's some, you know, here's some extrudes that went in. Here's some little extrudes inside these spaces to make little sort of windows. You know, so just be creative in that way. But this just gives you a start with making this kind of building.